So it's raining and raining and raining, and after one day of respite, we're back again with just constant downpour. The water cannot be absorbed by the soil because everything is saturated, and the rain might stop at some time around about midday today, but for the time being, it's just miserable in Albion, and I've retired up to the workshop. I have a couple of jobs to do, and I've lit the stove and I've lit the lantern, and I want to speak about chemtrailing actually. Because yesterday, when the weather was fine, as I returned from my shopping trip, I looked into the sky, and sure enough, there were a couple of planes spraying. I think we usually can't see them because we have this white sky and you can't see anything above it. But as it was clear yesterday, there they were, out again and spraying. And so who are these men that fly these planes and that agree to spray us like insects? What is their problem? Do they believe that they're doing good? Do they believe that this is a helpful thing to do? Or are they simply attracted by inevitably good salaries, and they stand behind the Official Secrets Act, so there will be no disclosure? But this is one of the problems that's emerging in Britain at the moment, I believe, because the military and the police ultimately are all under the King of England, and questions just arise in relation to who the King of England is. He doesn't support our kingly heritage, our godly heritage as a nation at all, and he promotes the Ishmaelite above us at every opportunity. I think the royal family, with their horse racing interests and their alliance with the princes of the Arab lands because of wealth, and then some really unsavory alliances with wicked men because of lustfulness and depravity within the royal house, protected, of course, by the king still today. And questions, of course, arise with regard to how deeply the royal family is embroiled in wicked practices, and how many bodies may be buried on the vast royal estates, which are inviolate because nobody can go and seek. They are private. This is where the Official Secrets Act starts and ends, I suppose, with the royal house. The king is the head of all the finest regiments of the British Army, the Navy, and the Air Force. The king and his issue. But one thing that Bill McMurdo doesn't address, and Bill McMurdo is the Scottish preacher who I would recommend that everybody go and listen to, anybody who loves the Lord, because his messages are faithful and true, and nobody listens. If you look at the view count, it's always low, and the messages are such a blessing. But Bill McMurdo is very circumspect when speaking of the king, as is right. We are warned in the Bible to speak carefully when we speak of rulers. In the Proverbs, I can't remember the precise verse, but these are dangerous things, and I don't make any pronouncements myself because nothing is proven, but suspicion is very high, and there's a good deal of foundation. This is the problem. And then when we see William, the pretender to the throne, a clear clearly related to a very wicked Edomite, or one of those of the synagogue of Satan, perhaps the chief one. So we have to wonder whether the royal bloodline has not been perverted. And I do suspect that this is what's happened. Perhaps after King Charles I was executed and Haman was inserted into the realm, or the spiritual heirs of that wicked Haman in the book of Esther. There is, I believe, this is just YouTube, a pretender or a righteous heir to the British throne in Australia. The original one that was interviewed a few years back has now passed on, but I believe he has a son. Perhaps that's where the royal house can be identified. Or perhaps it's Harry, because Harry is clearly not a son of our present king. Precisely whose son he is unclear, and he's definitely an outsider. And he's slated by the media. And he made an unfortunate marriage. And I'm sure he's regretting it, or he's sure he will be soon. Perhaps it's him, Prince Harry, who will take up the scepter. But the scepter must be wrenched from the hand of, at the very least, an unhelpful king. I don't want to call him wicked because I don't know. His associations raise suspicion, but guilt by association is not truly proven. One can know wicked men, but still be righteous, although at a certain point, of course, distance will be established. So I'm careful, in speaking, but the king is guilty through dereliction of duty, because if he who occupies the throne were to prostrate himself before the Lord in abject humility and pray for this nation, that would have an amazing effect. The power of prayer. And this comes back to the weather that we're currently enduring. When I saw these planes flying, in my heart, I reached out and tried to consider their pilots. And I don't know what has persuaded these men to engage in such heinous acts, such traitorous acts. And I suppose you could say that in my heart I cursed them. I don't know whether I actually did, but I felt such outrage, and I appealed to the Lord God that they be thwarted and rebuked. And I think we can all do this. The imprecatory Psalms are in the Bible for a reason. And prayer, righteous prayer, will be answered because God is faithful. So these acts of wickedness need to cease, and the skies need to clear, and the sunlight be readmitted into the world. And of course, we all yearn for that wonderful day. But there are various things to sort out in the meantime, and one of them is the condemnation of they that would defile our sisters, our women folk. And we can find that in Genesis with the story of Shechem and Dinah, and Simeon and Levi, who went to the city and killed all the men as retribution for the defilement of their sister. Jacob complained to them because he felt that he would be targeted, but he wasn't. So God was with them. So these migrant men from different races who have lusted after our daughters and taken them unjustly and sometimes murdered them to receive light prison sentences from our unjust rulers should think carefully, because when we rise, we might follow the example set by Simeon and Levi and destroy the entire nation. This is a biblical warning that people would do well to heed. But we can't do that until our women are in submission. And the reason I say that is because Dinah was probably, there's no record in the Bible of her being outraged at the way she'd been treated. She might have been upset with her brothers that they would presume to kill her lover, who was the king's son. You can't defend a woman who's not in under your authority, because she can turn around and say, no, 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 you've done wickedly, and call for your arrest. Dinah was perhaps enamored of her I don't know what race he was, but he certainly wasn't an Israelite. Enamored with her lover, she was a young woman, and she'd lost her virginity. Perhaps he didn't take her by force. Perhaps she felt that she might be moved to be with this man. That can occur. Our women need to be protected also in their mind. So Jude, Simeon, and Levi were able to act because Dinah was under authority. She wouldn't have reported them to the police or anything like that. She couldn't have done because they were her brothers and they loved her. So this has to happen before we can really defend our women folk. And I do want them to be defended. I would love to defend them, but in this country, certainly now, or probably in America too, one has to be quite careful before lifting up the hand against any man, even some of the worst men. We're not allowed to defend ourselves, and we're not allowed to defend our women folk. So that's a thought. And I would recommend that anybody who is interested in the Israelite and feels that they are an Israelite or is an Israelite, listen to Bill McMurdo, his latest offerings. He preaches up in Glasgow. And he's a good preacher. He's a good Bible preacher. And he speaks about our destiny constantly. And you can tell that it's good stuff, because even after 9 months of an old video of his where there's President Trump shown, there's only about 70 or 80 views, I think. And it's such great material. So that's just my recommendation. I could probably put a link in the video, whether I'll remember or not, I don't know. I don't really know whether anybody's listening, of course. But it doesn't matter. I'm going to carry on speaking anyway. I'm not really after likes or anything like that, or even views. I'm just speaking for my own release of frustration and anger at some of the things that I see around me. God bless this morning.